It is well documented in history how Caesar and Augustus paid homage to Alexander the Great by visiting his grave. One among them even placed his diadem on the grave to show respect to the great conqueror. It is also known how Sultan Mehmed, when he conquered Constantinople, styled himself as the new Caesar. The question that stands before us is, how do we connect ourselves to history? As we know, Caesar had nothing in common with Alexander, not even the language they spoke. Neither did Mehmed share any beliefs with Caesar, yet they connected themselves with figures known in history. The question in front of us is, how does history really play a role in our lives, in motivating us or tracing our culture? With the given example before us, as I just said, there is no cultural or religious connectivity among these men, but only the image they wanted to form of themselves, one that could move their people forward. What were we before we were told what we are? And can these links with history be freely chosen by the people? Can we connect ourselves with any culture? Can I say that I am a Greek and that my ancestors were the teachers of the West and the Middle Ages? It is possible, and I hope no one can deny it if I style myself in such a manner. So, what is history? Something through which we create our image, or is it really something that defines us? The idea of history as inevitable, that what happened must have been the only way events could unfold, is often challenged by scholars. Hegel and Marx held views somewhat aligned with the dialectics of history, where we find that whatever happened was a consequence in line with what had come before. There are also thinkers like Bacon and modern social theorists who maintain that vice and suffering are in the end always products of ignorance of the past. I found a passage interesting in Isaac Berlin's work where he writes, "It is the heart of all the utopians from Bacon and Campanella to Lessing and Condorcet, Saint Simon and Cabot, Fowler and Owen, culminating in the bureaucratic fantasies of Auguste Comte, with his fanatically tidy world of human beings joyfully engaging in fulfilling their functions, each within his own rigorous defined province, in the rationally ordered, totally unattainable hierarchy of the perfect society. These are the benevolent humanitarians prophets our own age has known, not a few of them, from Julius Winner and Edgy Wells and Bernard Shaw to their unnumbered American disciples, generously disposed towards all mankind, genuinely seeking to rescue every living being from its burden of ignorance, sorrow, poverty, and humiliating dependence on others. He further argues for Hegel and for a good many others, though by no means all, among the philosophers and poets of the Romantic movement, history is a perpetual struggle of vast spiritual forces embodied now in institutions, churches, races, civilizations, empires, national states, now in individuals of more than human stature, world historical figures of bold and ruthless genius towering over and contemptuous of their puny contemporaries. For Marx, the struggle is a fight between social conditioned, organized groups, classes shaped by the struggle for substance and survival, and consequently for the control of power. For Berlin, history is not something deterministic, as he further writes, but to maintain that since men are determined, history, by which he means the activity of historians, cannot, strictly speaking, ever be just or unjust, but only true or false, wise or stupid, is to expound a noble fallacy, and one that can seldom, if ever, have been acted upon. For its theoretical acceptance, however half-hearted, has led to the drawing of exceedingly civilized consequences, and checked much traditional cruelty and injustice. Now, the reason for quoting him here is to situate my argument. It is not deterministic or an undeterministic understanding of history that I want to argue here, My point is that history as a whole must be divided on the grounds of what influences it makes upon us. There are works written by Christians and Muslims that document the achievements of the past by people who followed their religion. There are even mentions of some Jewish chroniclers that Aristotle became a Jew in his final years. That is mostly not true. But why are we really putting so much effort into claiming that we belong to a group that has a great history? Why are we investing so much energy in maintaining this sense of belonging while forgetting to locate where we are standing now? Moreover, there is no such thing as a pure history of any civilization. Each has drawn heavily from others, as I mentioned with examples like Sultan Mehmed and Caesar. There are many more who never subscribed to the idea of history as we often see it today, as separate isolated narratives of ours and theirs. This way of thinking may have emerged after the fall of various political powers, which is likely why we now discuss history in this manner. My point is that in the history of mankind, there have been people of virtue and people who followed the wrong path. They came from different backgrounds, yet they were not defined by their past, but by their actions, by living with justice or by living with evil. If, for example, someone is from a different place, speaks truthfully, and acts justly for the good of others, is he not better than someone who is from our family, shares our religion, and is our friend, but acts wrongly and carries evil in his nature? Surely we would choose the person who is virtuous. In such a case, our religion, culture, and history have nothing to do with it. The way people divide us on the grounds of history, and even divide themselves, is ultimately a way of dividing the noble character within humanity. That noble character, which is good and which, if united, has the potential to create wonders and bring justice to all. Surely this is not an argument about determinism or indeterminism in history, but rather about justice and injustice, what history teaches us, and how we choose to connect with it on other terms. We are open to connect with anyone we find valuable. We do not need a Jewish, Muslim, Christian, black, or white history, but a history that serves a purpose, one that uplifts and guides us. Our politicians often divide us in the name of our histories that are, of course, different as we all come from different places. But what unites us all is the goodness and the virtue that we recognize and that we can extend to those who are in need of a clearer, better vision of life. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all a good day.